We're officially in September, which means we got the August 2023 jobs report, and it's pretty good for President Biden, the Democratic Party, and the country as a whole. Once again proving time and time again that, generally speaking, the Democratic Party are simply better stewards of the economy than the GOP. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, folks, so this is really nothing new. This is something that we have, it's a habit. It's becoming a recurring trend. With reasonable confidence, we can say that the job market under the leadership of President Biden and the Democratic Party is pretty good. So what do we see? Well, in August 2023, we saw the creation of nearly 190,000 jobs, about 187 to be more precise. The unemployment rate is still under 4%. It rose somewhat, and we'll get to that in a minute, but it's still under 4%, and it's been under 4% for something like 19 months, 20 months, 18 months, something like that, which is the longest stretch of under 4% in like 50 or 60 years. Like, it's an incredible achievement. President Biden gave some remarks on this, so we're going to hear just a bit of it, and then again, we will unpack just a bit more.
As we head into Labor Day, we ought to take a step back and take note of the fact that America is now one of the strongest job-creating periods in our history, in the history of our country. It wasn't that long ago that America was losing jobs. In fact, my predecessor was one of only two presidents in history who entered his presidency and left with fewer jobs than when he entered. Look at where we are now. Just this morning, we learned that the economy created 190,000 jobs last month. All told, we've added 13.5 million jobs since I took office.
So he goes on for about 4 minutes, and I think actually he speaks even more than that, but we won't play the whole clip. So there we have the chief economist at Moody's Analytics, one of the most reputable, economic, financial, investment firms, I think, in the entire world. This is what he had to say. The August jobs report couldn't be much better. Job growth is solid, but slowing, right, which was expected. Inevitably, it would start to decline at least a bit. Unemployment rose, but for that right reason. More labor supply as participation jumped, because labor participation jumped as well. Wage growth continues to moderate and hours work rose. The report has soft landing written all over it, okay? Now, this is, again, good news. We've seen much bigger jobs report from President Biden and the Democrats, but again, we expected, that eventually things would start to normalize, which is good because you don't want the economy overheating at all times. It would probably be unsustainable in some sort of economic fashion if you continue to have record-breaking, just earth-shattering jobs reports numbers month after month after month, but still pretty darn good. Now, the other thing I want to point out real quick, because just as a reminder, this is a tweet from Kazim Rashid. I don't understand how anyone can look at the last 85 years of job creation under Republican presidents and Democratic presidents and decide that Republicans care about anyone other than the top 1%. It's cognitive dissonance on steroids, folks. Stop voting GOP. Hashtag Democrats deliver more jobs, which is true. And so on average per month, Democratic presidents, and you have Biden, Obama, you probably can't see here, Biden, Obama, Clinton, I think this is Truman, and FDR. And then you have on the other side Reagan, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, and the clown himself, Donald Trump. And again, the records are, it's night and day. 175,000 jobs, almost 176,000 jobs created on average per month under Democratic leadership versus 67,000 under Republican leadership. So just a few minutes left because we're going into Labor Day weekend. I was going to try to put forth like a kind of a labor package thing together, discussing just the entire labor accomplishments of the Democratic Party and President Biden these past 2.5 years to just kind of drive that point home. I hope I'll find the time to do it. But I've been in multiple debates here lately with conservative and centrist streamers at various points when, Biden's economic performance comes up. Because again, as we've discussed on this channel, the facts say one thing, which is that, again, Democrats are consistently, probabilistically better stewards of the economy than Republicans, and that's just simply a fact. But then there's the perception, and voters' perception is very, very different of the facts, because facts do not, have never, and never shall speak for themselves. We have to speak for them, and we have to speak persuasively about them. We have to remind people. And the Republican Party has an incredibly sophisticated turnkey propaganda machine, not just with Fox. Fox is obviously the I don't even know if I would call it the crown jewel anymore, but it was the prototype. And it got them so far. But even in alternative media with Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire and Steven Crowder and yada 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 yada. I mean, every which way you look, the right wing has a very sophisticated media apparatus with relatively high message discipline, and they are able to spin that lie more effectively than Democrats and their surrogates in the media are able to present the facts. Okay, so we all have to be better about that. And even, I'll just stick with jobs here. One of the things I hear a lot is, well, Josiah, we can't give Biden all the credit for the 13.5 million jobs that President Biden was talking about because we were experiencing a pandemic recovery, right? Those jobs really weren't lost. They were put on hold. So I've got a couple of things to say just offhand, because again, this has been a recurring theme in conversations I've had with conservative debaters and commentators and centrist debaters and commentators. Number one, the Department of Labor does not count jobs differently under Biden than they did Trump. Okay, it's not like there's any little asterisk when the the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Department of Labor releases job numbers. So I don't know why we would suddenly change the criteria if they have it. Number one. Number two, if the shoe was on the other foot, if Trump had inherited a COVID-style pandemic from Obama and presided over that recovery, would right-wing media and would Republicans be saying, well, we can't give our guy all the credit because even though he'd inherited a pandemic from his Democratic predecessor, there was a recovery involved? No, of course they would never say that. They would say he gets all the credit, right? They do it with Trump even now. The grading of curves that Republicans and right-wingers and even centrists try to do with respect to Donald Trump's economic record is hilarious. They're like, let's count from January 2017 until December 2019, and let's just not count the last year of COVID. It just shouldn't count, even though Donald Trump was president. And you also can't count the fact that Trump inherited a great economy from Obama, that Obama had to recover from a great recession that he inherited from George W. Bush. So it's against you can't count this, you should count this. I'm not playing that game, and neither should you. But even if we generously granted the Republican premise that you can't count the you can't count the jobs record until we hit the pre-pandemic levels, that's fine. We could do that. We won't. We never will. But we could. Because in 2022, September 2022, as a matter of fact, about a year ago, that's when we reached pre-pandemic levels of unemployment. And then since then, in a year, President Biden has presided over the creation of 4 million jobs in 1 year, not counting pandemic recovery. In Donald Trump's first year in office, he only created 2 million. So if you're a centrist or you're a Republican watching, 4 is twice as many as 2. So even then, Biden wins. There's no scenario in which Trump comes off better looking on jobs. Biden wins. Biden always wins, no matter how you try to rig the criteria in your favor. But even besides that, the reason that I'm still going to count the jobs from the moment Biden took office until now, why I'm still going to count that full 13.5 million, is because President Biden did things that actually contributed to that recovery. He presided over an enormously successful vaccine rollout, right? Which not only increased the raw numbers, obviously, of people vaccinated compared to Trump, but even the rate of vaccinations increased considerably under Biden compared to Trump. Biden came in and said, look, let's try to get 100 million vaccinations in 100 days. He got 200 million vaccinations in 100 days. He coordinated the state-by-state vaccine rollout. It was enormously successful. He dedicated resources, created partnerships with Lyft and Uber and all the things to maximize the vaccination rollout, which allowed the economy to open up safely, which allowed consumers to go back into their jobs or into the market, into the economy, into stores, engaging in commerce with a degree of comfort and safety, knowing that they were protected by the vaccines. Moreover, he also presided over the American Rescue Plan, which no Republican voted for, and according to Moody's Analytics and other financial firms, it spurred the creation of 4 million jobs a year earlier than expected and doubled GDP. So he gets credit for that. But we're not even counting things like the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law, some of which were bipartisan, but others were just a complete partisan, down-the-line vote. And those have also created jobs according to industry leaders. billions upon billions. I think it was like 200 billion or maybe 20 billion, 200 billion. It's 20 something in investment from various like semiconductor manufacturing facilities and sort of telecommunications, say like Dell and HP and others, like investing in the creation of new facilities, new plants, and new jobs. Biden gets credit for that. So anyway, I'm hoping I will have the time to put forth where we look at the GDP and jobs and wages and inflation and even gas prices and all the things. But if not, just know going into this labor weekend that between everything I just said, as well as recent videos that we've done about Biden's pro-worker, pro-labor decisions, which will maximally increase the possibility for workers to unionize in this country. Again, the situation with domestic manufacturing, all the things. President Biden and the Democratic Party have been vastly better stewards of the economy than the Republican Party and Donald Trump. And I'll simply conclude by saying this. There are still legitimate concerns, legitimate tension, and legitimate suffering and hardship in this country under Democrats or under Republicans, and there is much more work to be done. But as we head into an election season, 2024 is right around the corner. The question is, okay, even though there's much more work to be done, who will I reward with my vote? You have the Republican Party with a much worse record, or a Democratic Party with not a perfect record, but a much better record. It seems to me the rational way to assign your vote is to vote blue, no matter who, and not vote red.